There were numerous citadels scattered across the storm sea, hidden in its eerie and unpredictable waters. Some had been ruled by the House of Night for decades, some were conquered recently, as a result of Mordred infiltrating the Great Clan in preparation for the Domain War. A year ago, one of them was ceded to the river people after they escaped the tomb of Ariel, so that they had a home in the new and unfamiliar world Ananke had brought them to. That citadel had been known as the Black Obelisk before. It was a gargantuan stone spire rising from the water and pointing at the sky as an accusing finger. In fact, it was a finger, a tip of one. If one dove deep into the turbulent waters and followed the obelisk into the depths of the storm sea, they would eventually discover that it connected to an immense hand carved from black stone, with 4 more fingers protruding from it at an angle. The structure was overgrown by enormous barnacles, seaweed, and algae, with myriad nightmare creatures nesting in the underwater jungle. But its form was still recognizable. That hand seemed like it belonged to a human, but there was something eerie and unnervingly wrong about it. And if one dove even further, into the crushing darkness of extreme depths, they could trace the hand to the arm, eventually reaching the colossal head of the inconceivable statue. No one knew what its face looked like, though, because everyone who had dared to gaze upon it either died or went mad, eventually losing their lives to the agony of violent delirium. So, people did not dive that deep near the Black Obelisk, and none of them had ever dived deeper than the hidden face of the drowned statue. The citadel itself was not very populous, considering that there was not a lot of surface here for people to live on. It was located close to the shores of the storm sea, though in relatively safe waters. Safe meant stable in the storm sea, having nothing to do with how many abominations inhabited the region. More importantly, it was the closest citadel to the estuary of the River of Tears, which made it an important way station for the ships traveling from the far reaches of the storm sea or from the east. So, the population of the Black Obelisk had been small and largely transient. That was how it had been before, at least. Today, the Black Obelisk was unrecognizable. Standing at its highest point, Sunny glanced down with a sense of wonder. Below him, a city sprawled above the waves. Bright sunlight poured from the azure sky, illuminating its vibrant expanse. The Black Obelisk was not black anymore, having turned entirely silver from the myriad strings of essence silk wrapped around it. Powerful cables of silk stretched outward from the silver spire, supporting vast platforms that swayed lightly on the water. These island ships were built from manifested essence as well, supporting ornate residences, verdant gardens, and lush fields. Arched bridges connected them to each other, and myriad gondolas were moving in the channels between them. The streets were full of people, and on the outer edges of the floating city, new islands were being built by crews of busy workers. Dozens of graceful ships with silvery sails were moored to the long piers, and awakened warriors patrolled the waters around the city on swift boats or aquatic echoes. And all of it, the gardens, the fields, the people, emanated the sense of overflowing health and vitality. That was because everything in the floating city bore the blessing of its ruler, Ananke of Weave, the Silk Weaver. That was the title the river people had given Ananke after emerging from the Ark amulets and learning the story of how she carried them across eternity to the vast skies of a new world. As for the name of the city itself, after hearing it for the first time, Sunny was relieved to learn that it wasn't the most unsophisticated naming sense in the world. Come to think of it, the river people were quite straightforward with giving things names as well. Weave, Verge, Twilight, Ark. The new city they had built in the storm sea was called Webb. This was where most of the river people lived. There was also an enclave of them in the vast city at the estuary of the River of Tears that Moonvale ruled, as well as a dozen crews scattered across the storm sea, helping people of the human domain expand the settlements surrounding other marine citadels. Now, a year after arriving in the dream realm, the river people were somewhat settled into their new lives. Still, there were myriad things that needed to be done, and it was going to take many years before they were truly accustomed to life outside the tomb of Ariel. It's a marvelous sight. Sunny was being sincere. Well, of course he was. He couldn't lie after all. Webb was quite tiny, compared to the behemoths of human settlements like NQSC, Bastion, or Ravenheart. However, seeing it thrive tugged on his heartstrings. There was something about seeing the river people build a city that made Sunny feel like there was hope for all of them. It was a soothing feeling. Standing next to him, Ananke smiled. "It is, isn't it?" She paused for a moment, then chuckled. "Do you know, Lord Sunless? When we first began building this city, we almost built the houses of youth out of habit. It was only later that we realized that we would never need them again. People age differently in your world, after all. Sunny glanced at her, remained silent for a while, and then smiled darkly. This is not my world, Ananke. He turned around to the radiant vista of the floating city and added in a neutral tone. This is not my world yet. She nodded politely. After a few moments of silence, Ananke added, We still built a house of youth, though, as well as a house of parting. They serve a different purpose than in the tomb of Ariel, but, although the purpose is new, its essence is the same, like all other things in this new, peculiar world. Sunny grimaced, glanced at the sun, and then took a step back to stand in the shadow. The storm sea was usually covered in mist and quite somber. Why did it have to be so bright every time he crawled out of the shadows to take a proper look at the growing city? I see that the unfinished island ships survived the recent storm. That's good. Ananke nodded. The river people know a lot about storms, and according to the people whom you call the House of Night, the storms here are much weaker than they are deeper into the sea, having exhausted all their fury. Sunny studied her for a moment, then said in a curious tone, You seem to be adapting well. It has been a year since you and your people escaped the tomb of Ariel, hasn't it? So how is it? What do you think about the world beyond its walls? Ananke hesitated for a bit. It is a wondrous place, Lord Sunless. She paused for a moment, and then added with a smile. And incredibly bizarre. Things are easier for me, since I had a long, long time to grow accustomed to the stillness of the great river. But my people have only known it for a short while, so it is difficult for them to adapt to the dream realm. Ananke glanced at Sunny. As for me personally, I am still a little stunned. He raised an eyebrow. By what? Ananke lingered, choosing her words carefully. By the scale of the vast world outside the walls of Ariel's tomb, and by the scope of your people as well. She shook her head. I simply did not know that there could be that many people living in the world. Even at its peak, the population of the river people was merely a fraction of the inconceivable immensity of the war realm's population. All of my people can probably fit into one of those harrowing human hives in the place you call the siege capital. NQSC. Ananke shivered. NQSC. What a peculiar name. Visiting it shocked me the most, no doubt. Honestly, I was a bit terrified. Sunny let out a chuckle. Terrified? What can terrify a supreme? She shifted uncomfortably. The solidity of it all. Nothing moves, nothing flows. There's no water anywhere, only solid ground. And an endless mass of metal looming over me. A suffocating number of people. Too many of them to fathom, locked inside metal hives, hidden underground. Gods! For a moment, I thought that I was in hell. Sunny glanced at her incredulously. Hey, that was a respectable district close to the city center. You should have seen the place I grew up in. It's 10 times worse. Ananke let out a nervous laugh. The way you experience time is also very strange, Lord Sunless. I couldn't quite wrap my head around how a civilization can just exist, despite everyone knowing that time is slowly devouring them, no matter what they do, and having no control over their lifespans. Bizarre, it's simply bizarre. Just thinking about it gave me a headache. Not to mention that there's simply nothing above us. Just a vast, boundless emptiness. That's a frightening thing to imagine. Sunny blinked a couple of times. Well, now you know how I felt in the tomb of Ariel. She smiled. And speaking of that, Ananke reached into the folds of her nebulous mantle and produced a booklet printed on synthetic paper. On its cover, a few words were arranged into a neat title. Exploration Report on Everything, by Nobody. She glanced at it with a complicated expression. It felt really peculiar to read about the Great River, and myself, despite having no memory of that version of me. Of Weave being destroyed by a mad titan, the Serpent King ruling a great city. Life is sure full of surprises, especially when you are involved, my lord. Ananke chuckled. Oh, but there were great things as well. I quite like the city you call Bastion, even if it is imposingly enormous. Then the place called Ravenheart, that was the first time I saw snow. Snow is a lovely thing, Lord Sunless. And there is the Garden of Repose as well, truly a wondrous vessel, one worthy of carrying a god. Over the past year, Ananke had visited several places both in the dream realm and in the waking world. The latter repelled her with as much force as it did Sunny and Nephice, but she still stayed for a few days, exploring the alloy jungle of NQSC and meeting various champions of the human domain. Her people, too, visited Earth with the help of the Saints of Night. They needed to establish tethers there, after all, to be able to travel between the worlds and rapidly relocate resources. It seemed that the river people did not have a good impression of the waking world, perceiving it in the same vein as its people would perceive a death zone. And who could blame them? Toxic air, overcrowded siege capitals, hordes of nightmare creatures wandering the desolate expanse of deadly wastelands. If Sonny had not been born on Earth, he would have seen it as some kind of hell too. Ananke fell silent, lingered for a while, and then sighed. But mostly, it's exactly the same. Sonny frowned slightly. Exactly the same? She nodded. There might not be a defilement in the dream realm, but there are seeds of nightmare. People still live in fear of the corrupted, fighting a losing battle against them in order to survive. The future is bleak and terrifying, but everyone has blinded themselves to the truth, because that is the only way to live on without drowning in despair. She sighed. That was how it was in the tomb of Ariel, as well, shortly before the end. Ananke remained silent for a moment, and then smiled faintly. But beneath all that despair, there is still hope. And people find the strength to live because that single ray of hope does not allow them to give up. She glanced at Sonny. My people did not give up, and because of that, they found salvation. I am sure that all of us will find salvation as well, as long as we do not give up hope.